Hello and welcome to A Cup of Conversation on BRT TV. My name is John Ghazi, and this week I have a very important distinguished guest here with me in the BRTK studios in Lefkoşa. This man is no stranger to the media, not only in front of the cameras or even behind the cameras or even writing for papers, because Mr. Süleyman Ergüçlü has been in the media business for many, many years. In fact, holding positions of authority here at BRTK, then retiring, and one of the brains behind the establishment of the most widely read daily publication in Northern Cyprus, Kıbrıs newspaper. Holding very important positions, he's now a man who has written a book about his early life called A Minute, a Lifetime. Now, this book was originally in Turkish, recently translated into English, and today I'm honoured to have Mr. Süleyman Ergüçlü as my guest on A Cup of Conversation. So first of all, welcome to the programme, Mr. Ergüçlü.
Thank you for bringing me to this program.
You're more than welcome. It's an honour to have you here. This is like your first home, I believe.
It is, yes.
You have been with BRT for many, many years.
BRT. When I started, it wasn't BRT, it was Bayrak Radio.
Yes.
And then it developed into that corporation with a television and all that.
Yes. A lot of changes over the years.
Of course, naturally.
Naturally. Your book is a wonderful book, and I remember the Turkish version coming out, and I just looked inside. I didn't realise that the English version was actually printed in November 2019. So this is a hot off-the-press book now that is in the bookshops. This is your early life, the story of a life which started in the Yeni Cami area of Lefkoşa and went through the war in 1974. So this is about your childhood, coming up to your early years as a young man, as a mujahid in 74. Where did this story come to life? I mean, how did you think about writing your early biography, Mr. Ergüçlü?
Well, I was thinking about it for a long time, because the book is based on an experience I had, a very bad experience I had during the war. I was a soldier, mujahid, during 1974, and the experience was I was to shoot a bazooka rocket at the enemy positions, and in the old town of Nicosia the distances are very close. To cut the story very brief, we loaded the bazooka. I took it on my shoulder. I got up. In order to be able to shoot a bazooka, you have to be visible to the enemy from here on, because you stand up and aim.
Yeah. And
the distance was close. But I thought to myself, yes, in a matter of seconds, it will be over. I got up, aimed, pulled the trigger, and the rocket didn't fire, didn't ignite.
Yeah.
So what you do, according to the book, you wait for a couple of seconds and you pull the trigger once more. I tried that as well. It didn't fire again. So there might be late ignition. So you have to stay put without moving for 1 minute. And that 1 minute in the open, in front of the enemy, in such a short distance, is a lifetime.
Yes.
I mean, full of fear, of course. If anybody says I wasn't afraid during any sort of fighting, he's lying.
Yeah.
And in that minute, memories came to my mind from my early childhood and until 74. And actually, those memories are the things which reflect the lifetime of my generation.
Yes.
In Nicosia, at least. And that's why everybody around my age, when they read the book, they say, well, I mean, I felt I was there as well. Because they were, I mean, in a different place, under different conditions maybe, but it was the life cycle in that period of a certain generation, my generation.
Yes.
And I felt it was my duty to pass these negative experiences on to the younger generations, both in the south and in the north, so that they take the necessary measures to live in peace, so that they don't experience such bad times anymore. That's how the book came around.
A very interesting story and a very interesting book that you've written about that time. As you said, a very important time in our history, and it's important to shine the light for future generations about what happened. You lived it minute by minute, the way you describe it. And in fact, as you said, a minute for you out in the open, waiting for the bazooka to fire, was like a lifetime. You go back, in fact, you start with your childhood, and I know that you were very close to your father and your mother, and your grandmother as well, Jamalier, Granny Jamalier.
Especially my grandmother.
Yes, especially your grandmother. And you have two older sisters, but you reflect back, going back in time, saying that your grandmother was very, very typical Ottoman lady, and she made you the man of the house, especially after your father passed away when you were very young, and he was a very young man as well when he passed away. You became the man of the house, despite two older sisters and your mother. Do you look back on that time as a happy time in your life? Were you happy as a young child in that family?
Well,
different things going on, obviously.
Those were difficult times. It was the 60s, and in Nicosia we were under a blockade. We could only feed ourselves with the help coming from the Turkish Red Crescent. I mean, the situation was that bad. But in the house, the treatment I used to get from my grandmother, I used to like it at that time.
Yes.
I mean, she was saying, you girls, to my sisters, you girls, don't you understand? Süleyman is a boy, so he has the privilege. I mean, even when we were eating, she was giving the best part to me. This I used to like as a child, but what was very, very bad and, you know, pressure on me was that she was regarding me as the man of the family. I mean, imagine when people came to ask for the hand of my sisters to marry. Yeah. She insisted I sat there as the head of the family at the age of 12. Imagine the pressure on that little child. And I had to go through that. At that moment, I was both enjoying it, but at the same time feeling, the pressure. You know, the pressure. Feeling angry that they came to take my sister away. But, you know, it was both the good. I don't look back on those days. Yeah.
Well, it's good to have these nice memories. I mean, it's fun now for you to reflect on your childhood. And it's a very sensitive story for you because, like I said, you know, you lost your father at a young age. He was a very important person in your life, and so you became the man of the house early. In your book, then you talk about your education, and in fact you were educated in the UK. You went to England.
Yeah.
You studied computer programming in London in the early 70s. So what was that like for you after being the man of the house, then going off to a foreign country like England, going to London? How did you feel then?
It was difficult, of course, but again, more or less the same mentality continued, and my late mother came with me. She was working, and I was working part-time, and I was studying at the same time. And so London was a totally different experience. And I studied computer programming, and at that time, many people didn't even know what computers were.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Of course.
And when I came back in '73, I was looking for a job before joining the military, before going to the military. And they were saying, what did you study? I was saying, computer programming. What? Computer programming. Why didn't you go and study something proper? They would say at that time. And I had difficult times, but especially the language. My English was very good since I was studying at the English college, but having built on it in London, I had a very big advantage, especially when I became a journalist. A language was a very, very big advantage. So that was England.
That was England. And then you came back, as you said, at a very critical time in our history, up to 74. This book is up to 74.
Yeah.
And you were there on the front line. You've experienced it all. So when you talk about the past, it isn't from what you've heard from other people. It isn't what we've read in the books. You've lived it.
Yeah.
Minute by minute, the fear, the tragedy of the time, the desperation of the time. However, being a mujahid led you to really into your profession today, because you started then at BRT, as it was then, at Bayrak Radio, and you became a voice, weren't you? You were a news, well, you went into the news department, didn't you?
Yes, but that was just after the war.
Yes.
And I finished my military service, and then I joined. It was very easy for a soldier to become a
presenter or a news broadcaster.
Working in the radio.
Yeah.
You see, I started working for the radio in a radio called Voice of Cyprus, Kıbrıs'ın Sesi, in Anamur, Turkey. It was a military radio pretending to be in Cyprus, broadcasting, from Anamur, to Cyprus.
Thinking that we are here
in
Cyprus.
And since I was in the military, and Bayrak Radio, it was supposed to be connected with the Bayrak Radio, but it wasn't actually. It was a when they were looking for someone, a speaker, editor speaker, to work there, I applied to it just after the war. And they said, right, go. And it was that easy because it was a part of the military,
yes.
Anyway. So I went and started working there as a news reader, news editor, and I stayed there for 4 years. It was good times after the war, especially. After all these fears and bad days, I spent some good time there for 4 years. Then I came back to Bayrak Radio. And I started working there and until I retired in '86.
Yes.
To become a journalist.
Yes, and you were obviously very important in the founding of Kıbrıs newspaper.
I was the late Mehmet Ali Akpınar, Metin Münir, and we were the founding editors of the paper of Kıbrıs, yes.
And you had a long career there as well.
Oh yes, only recently, 3 years ago I gave up. But there were times when I left and went back again.
Yeah. So your later career was really all in journalism, either in broadcasting like here at BRT or in the print paper. So you are very good with the media. You've had a very, very distinguished career, very important man, very important in our history. Is this, I know that you have written, I know you're also a photographer, and you have had exhibitions taking photographs of famous faces in Lefkoşa. And so I know that you are still very active, but is this your first book, the Turkish version of A Minute and a Lifetime? Is that your first outing into writing about yourself and writing what you want to write about?
First of all, let me correct.
Okay, correct me, please.
I'm not a photographer. I'm a journalist. We journalists, we take photographs, but we don't know how to take, artistic pictures. There's, let's say, a car accident. As long as we get the car. A picture to give the idea to the readers in the paper, that's enough. I mean, we don't care about the light comes from here. And we don't know that. That's something else. So I don't call myself a photographer. And I'm not a writer as well. I'm a journalist. We are used to write things very, very simply, so that when one reads it, he understands it immediately. This can be a, car repairsman or a bank manager or anybody. So we make sure it's plain and understandable. So again, the dramatic writing of a book or a novel, that's not with us.
Okay, well, you're very modest, because I do think of you as a very good photographer, and I do think of you as a writer and author, but an autobiography and a very honest autobiography of your early years, you have to have a good penmanship for that, to be able to write. You don't think that you are an author because you are a journalist first of all. So you report the facts.
Yeah.
That's how to do it, isn't it?
And
this happened. That happened. This is the outcome finish. But this, I think, your book, A Minute, a Lifetime, is more than just reporting, because you have your feelings in there. You're sharing with your thoughts. You're talking about your family or your friends, what's happening at the time. And so you're bringing history alive as well as your thoughts alive. So this is really a very good book. This book is, that 1 minute in your lifetime that felt like a lifetime and bring everything in front of you. But you want to share this with everyone so they know about the history of Cyprus. Mm-hmm. Have you had a good feedback from your readers? As you said, your generation say, I remember this, or I felt this as well. But what about the people that you are really aiming for? Maybe my generation or younger generations who might forget now about the 60s and the 70s.
Yes, I'm getting good feedback from them, from the young people who read the book in the north. I haven't yet tested the youngsters in the south. But here I'm trying to, I was trying to give something else. I'm sure you noticed that when I'm writing about the incidents where I made mistakes, for example, where I went wrong. You see, what I'm trying to do here is to change something, because we Cypriots, we don't like to admit the mistakes we made. We are never wrong. We are always right. I mean, even if you tell someone you did this, and these are wrong, his start of the reply would be, yes, but.
But
he will try to
excuses.
Yes. So here I tried to break this, and I did get some criticism from some friends of mine, especially on this, which I expected, because it's in our character, so it's normal. But I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose. So the English version, I'm still at the stage of presenting it to people. So in the next couple of weeks, I will be having presentations in the Kyrenia area or Iskele area for the non-Cypriot residents here, and in the south as well, so that the youth in the south reads it as well. Unfortunately, we in the north are one step ahead of the south in that respect. We at least since a couple of years, we corrected our history books, and we are teaching our kids more or less the proper history without propaganda. But in the south, the Cyprus problem starts in '74. When Turkey invaded. Hold on, what happened then Turkey came? And this and that, yes.
It is, well, as you say, our version or the real version of events, where we live the events in this book, because A Minute in a Lifetime is an amazing read, very honest. But also what I find fascinating is that you have many photographs of that time to share. When you look at the photographs, do more memories come back to you as well? Because there are so many different interesting, like when you were given 5 Cyprus pounds and you bought a jacket, a green jacket.
Yes.
obviously, when you see the photographs, you think, ah, yes, I remember this. I remember what happened. Do these photographs help you relive the memories of that era that you're talking about? Because they're very interesting photographs.
Yes, of course. It reminds you of different things, different memories. So that's why I use the photographs.
Yeah.
I'm sure many people who saw those said, "Ah, I was there once." And,
Yeah. I mean, the photographs of you with your family, with your sister and your very famous Jamalier grandmother, yes. It does bring history alive. And I think we need to have books like this around, maybe in our schools, yes. For the children to read, to learn about things going on. And this English version obviously is available. Will it be available around the island? And I bought this book at a local bookstore, but will it be everywhere?
Yes, everywhere in the north. It will be sold in the north. And I'm putting it on Amazon soon, yes. So it will be available all over the world.
Very good. I think I saw one of the bookshops on their website. You could also, I think, order it from one of our local bookshops. Has it? I think when you type it in, it comes up, and you can put it in your basket for the bookshop. So it really is a very fascinating read, and a journalist, an author, a very modest man who says he's not a photographer, but he is a photographer as well. He's captured many, many famous people, many exhibitions around the island. But you say you'll be giving or meeting with people to talk about this book. So we'll have to follow you to find out where you are in the future.
Actually, after the program, I'm going to ask your help in contacting these people. And
we will.
I think they have associations.
Many.
Sort of, yes.
I'm sure many of the associations here in North Cyprus will be honoured to have you as a guest speaker to speak about this book. Yes, we will talk about that after the interview. But I want to say thank you very much for coming today, Mr. Ergüçlü, for sharing your opinions about this book, A Minute in a Lifetime. It's newly out. You can go to any of the local bookshops here in Northern Cyprus and find this book. As Mr. Ergüçlü said, it should also be on Amazon. So if you're watching from abroad, then definitely put this into your shopping basket and order this book, because it's a very, very fascinating read. A bit of personal information about Mr. Süleyman Ergüçlü and his family. Very, very heartfelt writing about his time during '74, a very, very important time on the history of our island. So if you want to learn more about our history, then this is one book you should get. And I advise all teachers to get this book and put them into their library at schools as well, because it's a very interesting read. Very easy read, actually, for all ages. It's not a difficult read. It's not a long read either. And it is something that is a must for everyone who is interested in the island of Cyprus. So thank you once again, Mr. Süleyman Ergüçlü.
Thank you, John.
Enjoy your time. Is there going to be just one final question? Will there be another book, maybe after '74?
Oh yes, there will be. You see, I did 42 years of journalism in this country. Yes. Most of this time, I was editor or chief editor. Yes. So you can imagine the experiences I have. I can imagine. So I'll be collecting my memories in a book soon. So we'll have sometime this year, let's say. Well, there you are. So hopefully there'll be a follow-up or a different book, because many years, many decades of working as a journalist with a great journalistic mind, great memory journalists have. So I'm sure there'll be a follow-up to autobiography of Mr. Süleyman Ergüçlü, a very interesting man, a very important person here in the TRNC. Thank you once again, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon, Mr. Thank Ergüçlü. You, John. Thank you very much. And with that, we've come to the end of A Cup of Conversation. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.